March 29th, 2026 is not arriving softly, and you must not mistake this moment for ordinary heartbreak. Since yesterday, Venus and Saturn have been standing together like a cold hand on the heart, and that pressure is not random. It is the sound of illusion cracking. It is the mirror being lifted. It is the universe forcing something into view that your emotions may have tried to soften, delay, or forgive. If you have felt a strange heaviness around love, a tightening in your chest, silence that suddenly feels louder than words, do not ignore it. This is not just sadness. This is revelation. There are certain cosmic moments that do not come to comfort you first. They come to confront you. And this is one of them. Venus rules love, attachment, pleasure, beauty, and the way you receive affection. Saturn rules truth, structure, maturity, consequences, and the things that endure only if they are real. When these two forces press against each other, fantasy cannot breathe for long. Soft excuses begin to suffocate. Mixed signals become impossible to romanticize. The connection you kept trying to understand starts showing you what it actually is, instead of what you hoped it could become. That is why this energy feels so sharp. The mirror is no longer flattering. It is honest. You may have felt this building before you had language for it. Maybe the texts became shorter. Maybe someone's presence became emotionally inconsistent. Maybe the warmth that once felt natural started feeling measured, delayed, or withheld. Maybe you have been carrying a relationship that looks intact on the surface, but feels hollow underneath. Maybe you have been doing what so many tender hearts do when they are afraid to lose something important. You may have been filling in the gaps, explaining away the distance, translating confusion into patience, turning emotional crumbs into proof that love is still alive. But this transit does not support emotional self-deception. It does not reward denial. It places a mirror in front of your heart and asks one unbearable question. Is this love, or is this your fear of letting go? That is why the title of this moment is so severe. Broken Heart Tomorrow is not just about pain arriving from outside you. It is about a truth becoming too clear to avoid. It is about the heartbreak of realizing that what you were holding may not be able to hold you back. It is about the ache that comes when you finally see the difference between attachment and alignment, between longing and loyalty, between chemistry and commitment. Venus may want sweetness, softness, reunion, reassurance. Saturn wants proof. Saturn wants integrity. Saturn wants emotional adulthood. And when love cannot stand inside that standard, it begins to crack at the edges. The reason this can feel so personal is because Venus and Saturn are not only exposing the other person, they are exposing you to yourself. They are showing you where you have tolerated emotional uncertainty for too long. They are showing you where your self-worth has been negotiating with inconsistency. They are showing you where you knew something was off, but kept waiting for the right sentence, the right apology, the right timing, the right miracle. This energy does not hate romance. It hates illusion. It does not punish love. It purifies it. But purification is not always gentle. Sometimes it arrives as distance. Sometimes it arrives as a delayed reply. Sometimes it arrives as the instant you realize that someone keeps asking for your softness while refusing to offer stability in return. This is why the emotional atmosphere may feel unusually heavy in the body right now. The heart has its own intelligence, but the body often knows the truth before the mind is ready to say it out loud. You may feel pressure in the chest, like your emotions are trying to rise but have nowhere to go. You may feel throat tension because there are things you need to say that you have been swallowing for too long. You may feel fatigue, not because your life is suddenly harder, but because your nervous system is tired of interpreting inconsistency as potential. You may feel restless sleep, strange dreams, sudden memories, or a deep quiet that feels almost eerie. The body becomes a second mirror during a transit like this. It does not just react, it reveals. And before this moment, many of you have already been living inside the prelude. You may have been in a connection that asked you to be endlessly understanding. You may have been waiting for someone to become emotionally ready. You may have been carrying the hope that if you loved carefully enough, communicated clearly enough, stayed patient long enough, the confusion would pass and the bond would finally become what it promised to be. But Saturn does not honor promises without structure. It does not care how intense the eye contact was, how magnetic the beginning felt, or how spiritually significant the connection seemed when everything first opened. Saturn asks a brutal and necessary question. Can this relationship sustain truth, pressure, responsibility, and time? If the answer is no, the mirror begins to clear. This is what is shifting now. The fog is thinning. The emotional story you kept telling yourself is colliding with the energetic facts. Someone's effort level becomes louder. Their silence becomes information. Their hesitation becomes information. Their inability to show up consistently becomes information. The thing about this transit is that it can feel cruel if you are still hoping the mirror will lie to you. But if you are ready to heal, it is one of the most sacred forms of protection. Because not every heartbreak is destruction. Some heartbreaks are extraction. Some heartbreaks are the universe removing the poison from the dream. This is especially true if you have been entangled in a karmic dynamic. A karmic connection is not always obvious in the beginning. Sometimes it arrives with intensity, familiarity, attraction, and the feeling that you have known this person forever. But karmic does not always mean forever. Sometimes it means lesson. Sometimes it means mirror. Sometimes it means this person came to activate a wound, expose a pattern, show you the exact place where your self-respect still needs to become stronger than your longing. Venus and Saturn together do not encourage you to chase what keeps wounding you. They encourage you to stop calling instability destiny. So if the atmosphere around you feels colder, slower, sharper, or more revealing, that is because emotional immaturity is being pushed to the surface. If someone is unable to meet you with honesty, care, and accountability, you may see it more clearly now than ever before. If you have been ignoring your own standards because you feared being alone, this transit will make that compromise feel unbearable. If you have been overgiving, over-explaining, overextending, or over-investing in someone who does not protect your heart, the mirror becomes impossible to look away from. And that can feel like heartbreak even before anything officially ends. Because the soul already knows when a truth has crossed the threshold. But this is not only about love in the romantic sense. Venus also governs your sense of value, your relationship to pleasure, your ability to receive, and your standards around what you allow into your life. Saturn's presence here may force you to ask whether you have been settling in other areas too. Have you been saying yes to work that drains you because you are afraid of disappointing people? Have you been shrinking your gifts because you do not fully believe they deserve stable compensation? Have you been tolerating financial dynamics, professional partnerships, or creative commitments that look promising but feel structurally weak? The same mirror exposing illusion in love can expose illusion in money. That is why this transit can carry a powerful abundance lesson, even inside a heartbreak story. If your self-worth has been compromised, your finances often feel it before your mind admits it. You may notice a stronger urge to protect resources, rethink spending, withdraw from impulsive decisions, or become more serious about long-term stability. This is not small. Venus with Saturn wants your money to reflect your maturity. It wants you to stop spending from emotional emptiness. It wants you to stop investing in appearances that do not hold real value. It wants you to build slowly, wisely, and with self-respect. If someone, somewhere, has been costing you more than they are nourishing you emotionally, financially, spiritually, this transit wants that. It's imbalance corrected. You may suddenly see where love and scarcity have been tangled together inside you. You may notice that you give more when you feel insecure. You may notice that you overcompensate when you fear abandonment. You may notice that part of you believed that if you just kept proving your value, someone would eventually choose you correctly. But Saturn says your value is not something to audition. It is something to anchor. And when Venus hears that lesson, receiving changes, money changers, standards change. The way you carry yourself changes. This is one of those moments when protection becomes more attractive than performance. In the body, this can play out through dehydration, disrupted sleep, lowered emotional tolerance, headaches from overthinking, shallow breathing, jaw tension, or a strange heaviness that makes you want to isolate and listen inward. Do not dismiss those signals. Your nervous system is trying to help you separate truth from emotional fantasy. When the heart has been stretched by confusion, the body begins calling for regulation. Drink more water than you think you need. Rest before exhaustion becomes collapse. Step away from overstimulation. Give your eyes less noise. Give your mind less chaos. Give your body a chance to tell you what your heart is still trying to negotiate with. Sometimes your healing begins when you stop overriding your own signals. This is also a moment to watch your dreams and your reactions closely. A transit like this can bring symbolic dreams, memories from old relationships, tense waves of grief that seem bigger than the current situation, or a sudden desire to close doors you have kept cracked open. That is not regression. That is release. Venus can bring the memory. Saturn decides whether the memory still deserves residence in your future. If you feel tears rising unexpectedly, let them rise. If you feel quiet replacing urgency, let it. If you feel the desire to stop chasing answers and simply observe, honor that. Clarity often enters after the nervous system stops begging for relief. Nowhere is this transit more intense than in relationships and communication. This is where the mirror becomes nearly impossible to escape. You must watch behavior more than language now. You must watch consistency more than chemistry. You must watch follow-through more than promises. Someone may still say beautiful things while failing to build anything real. Someone may still reach for you emotionally while refusing to meet the standard of actual partnership. Someone may still keep you close enough for emotional access while staying far enough away to avoid accountability. This transit does not want you hypnotized by potential. It wants you anchored in pattern recognition, and that is where the warning becomes sacred. If a person only shows up when they feel lonely, uncertain, bored, guilty, or afraid of losing access to you, the mirror will reveal it. If they disappear when emotional depth is required, the mirror will reveal it. If they ask for softness from you while responding to your needs with vagueness, avoidance, or defensiveness, the mirror will reveal it. If they say they care, but their actions keep creating instability, the mirror will reveal it. Do not look away just because the truth hurts. Some pain is clarifying pain. Some pain is the cost of leaving illusion behind. This does not mean every relationship under this transit is doomed, but it does mean every relationship is being tested for emotional honesty. Strong connections may feel more serious right now. Conversations may become heavier, but also more defining. Superficial bonds may struggle. Secret resentments may arise. Unspoken fears may demand language. The healthier the relationship, the more this transit can deepen commitment through truth. The weaker the foundation, the more this transit can expose what has been missing all along. That is why silence means something now. That is why timing means something now. That is why effort means something now. So what should you do during this transit? Slow down enough to hear what reality is saying. Do not chase reassurance from someone who keeps producing uncertainty. Do not send the extra message just to relieve your own anxiety if the deeper pattern is already clear. Observe. Let people reveal the architecture of their character. Have one honest conversation if it is needed, but do not argue with truth once it arrives. Journal what you feel without editing it into something more convenient. Protect your money. Protect your energy. Protect your sleep. Eat in a way that steadies you. Choose the grounded option over the dramatic one. And above all, stop trying to turn red flags into spiritual tests you are supposed to pass. Sometimes the lesson is not to endure. Sometimes the lesson is to leave. If you are in the middle of a painful realization, remember this. A broken heart is not always proof that you lost something sacred. Sometimes it is proof that you stopped betraying yourself. Sometimes the heartbreak is not the end of love. It is the end of illusion. It is the end of investing holy energy into unstable containers. It is the end of calling inconsistency depth. The mirror hurts because it removes the version of the story that kept you attached. But once that version dissolves, your future becomes cleaner. Now let us move into the 3 zodiac signs most affected by this energy. Pisces. This mirror is especially intense for you because your heart often feels the sacred potential in people long before they have proven they can sustain it. You can sense tenderness, pain, longing, and spiritual depth in others. And sometimes that gift becomes the very reason you stay too long. This transit is asking you to separate compassion from self-sacrifice. You may be realizing that you have been carrying emotional weight that was never fully yours. You may be seeing that your softness has been mistaken for endless tolerance. The heartbreak here is not just about another person. It is about the moment you recognize how much of yourself you kept bending to preserve a feeling. But this is your release. The mirror is not punishing you, Pisces. It is restoring you. Let this be the season where love stops being something you prove and starts being something you are met in. Virgo. This transit cuts with surgical precision for you because you notice patterns other people ignore. But you do not always act on them quickly when your heart is involved. You may have seen the inconsistencies already. You may have explained them away with logic, timing, stress, or circumstance. But now the emotional evidence is becoming too exact to dismiss. For you, this can feel like the collapse of trust in your own judgment, but that is not what is happening. Your judgment was working all along. You were simply hoping reality would soften. The mirror is asking you to stop doing emotional labor for both sides of a connection. Stop trying to organize chaos into commitment. Stop translating confusion into loyalty. Your healing begins the moment you accept that clarity is not cruelty. It is care. Gemini. This transit may strike through communication itself. Words, replies, tone shifts, unfinished conversations, mixed messages, and emotional contradictions may become the very place where the truth reveals itself. You are being shown whether the connection you are in can hold sincerity, depth, and steadiness, or whether it survives only through uncertainty and momentum. You may feel split between what was said and what was shown, between the spark and the structure, between the mental bond and the emotional reality, and that split is exhausting. The mirror for you is asking one essential question. Does this person communicate to connect, or communicate to keep you emotionally available? That answer matters now. Do not let charming language distract you from inconsistent behavior. The truth you accept now protects the future you are trying to build. Asterisk. For all three of these signs, it's for everyone listening who feels this transit in their bones, the deeper lesson is the same. Love that cannot survive truth was never safe enough to build your future around. Emotional intensity is not the same as emotional reliability. Spiritual connection is not the same as emotional maturity. Attraction is not the same as alignment. The mirror is here to end the confusion between these things. And yes, that may feel brutal, but brutal honesty is still holier than beautiful illusion. What comes next depends on what you do with what is being shown. You can keep negotiating with the mirror, trying to blur it again, trying to resurrect the version of the story that made you feel less alone. Or you can let the reflection sharpen. You can let the grief move through you. You can let the truth cost what it costs. And then you can step forward lighter, cleaner, and more unavailable to what dishonors your heart. This is where many people turn back. They see the truth, feel the ache, and retreat into familiar confusion because certainty without the fantasy feels too empty at first. Do not do that. Stay with the clarity long enough for it to become peace, because peace is coming. Not instantly. Not in the sentimental way the wounded heart wants, but in the real way, in the grounded way, in the way that lets you sleep again, in the way that lets your body unclench, in the way that makes your standards feel natural instead of defensive, in the way that teaches you the difference between being chosen and being kept on hold. The mirror is not just showing you what is ending. It is showing you what you are no longer available for. That is power. So if tomorrow feels heavy, if your heart feels worn, if the silence around a connection suddenly sounds louder than all the promises that came before it, understand what is happening now. Venus and Saturn are not trying to destroy your ability to love. They are trying to rescue it from illusion. They are trying to return your heart to truth. They are trying to make sure the next chapter of your life is built with stronger boundaries, cleaner intuition, wiser standards, and relationships that can actually survive reality. Do not beg the mirror to flatter you. Let it free you. Let it show you who is aligned with your future and who only knew how to visit your tenderness without protecting it. Let it show you where your loyalty has outlived the connection. Let it show you where your soul has been ready to move on, even while your emotions were still bargaining. You are not being abandoned by the universe in this moment. You are being redirected by it. And if your heart breaks, let it break open toward truth, not back toward illusion. Let it break open toward dignity. Let it break open toward the kind of love that does not require you to betray your own knowing. Because the real warning of this transit is not that someone may disappoint you. The real warning is that you might see the truth and still try to shrink yourself enough to keep the illusion alive. Do not do that. Stand before the mirror, breathe, listen, accept what it reveals, because this is where everything changes.